Let's see how this goes. And there we go. Happy Thursday. Welcome. As you can see, I've broken out a laptop and we're doing the live stream using my laptop rather than using my phone. And the reason being that, sorry, my camera's over here, which is weird. Kind of looking here and I'm like my eyes are looking in a different area. But this morning I had a bunch of issues. YouTube on my phone has been remarkably problematic. So we are not, we're not going that route. We're going the route of my laptop, my Linux laptop, and a little Logitech camera. And here we are. We're live. So I'm hoping everybody can hear everything. As soon as people jump in, we'll kind of get started. This morning I didn't live stream, so I feel like I got to soft pedal a little bit today. But nah, probably not. I think I'm just gonna likely just gonna unload because it's been another one of those. So we'll see who jumps on in a little bit. But it's it continues to be, just week by week, day by day, just such a shit show of what we have going on here in the U.S. And in a way that just, I continue to wonder about the mental health of people in general and what has led us to this point. And it is just unbelievable, to see the destruction that's being caused and the acceptance of that destruction. That's something I guess I don't know. I don't know if I can. I'm not sure if it's embrace. I guess it'll always come back to I'll never understand the hatred. As I continue to do this live stream, I guess I continue to find myself in a place of I'm trying not to be angry. Let's put it that way. I'm trying not, even though this is OSG Unleashed, right? I'm trying not to make this all about hatred and anger and everything like that. It's much more than that. It's always been about, I should say that. It's about frustration. A personal frustration. I feel that all of the things that I was taught are basically things that have just been flushed down the toilet. And that's something I guess I just don't understand. Continue to not understand. I think I say this every week. I don't understand. So I don't understand hatred. I don't understand how you can have such animosity to a person, to a group of people, hey, Ken, there we go. Ken, what's going on, brother? I can understand the hatred one can have because of any of it. That's what it really comes down to. Hey, Nick, good evening. I can't understand it. Peter, what's going on, brother? So, we can certainly sit there and look at the shit that's come down this week from the administration. I mean, every week it just seems like I'm almost to the point of becoming inured to the lunacy, the psychosis, the absolute my incredulity to I shouldn't say that. The incredulity of what they're doing is having so little effect on me now. And I guess I find that I hope I don't get to the point where I'm so inured to this that I give up, because I can't imagine that we can ever get to that point. But I am still sick into my stomach when, as a country, we have entered dictatorship, flooding the zone. It's by design. Oh, Peter, you're 100% right. But it is so heartbreaking for somebody who's this year turning 60. When I think back, I'm thinking a lot more of my parents. When I think back to the reason why they came here, my father in the 30s and my mother in the 60s, and to think about how they came here, why they came here. And I knew that they also had their own crosses to bear by some of the attitudes that they carried over from where they came from. But it's unbelievable that my parents came to this country in trying to find ways of, this is a better land. This is a land where we can learn from, where we can find ways of becoming our best selves. And I truly believe that the American experience is one where you can come to this country and you can discover how you can be your best. And by best, I don't mean going into the military or going into business or whatever. Those are part of it. But people come to this country, are born in this country, and we are given the opportunity to be the absolutely best human beings we can be. And to see now a regime that is basically trying to take that completely away. Get rid of the immigrant experience, unless you're white. Get rid of academia that brings the best into this country, to allow that to foster and create other innovation that allows for greater prosperity for more people. The ability to, and again, you guys know where I come from. As a Christian, it bothers me to no end. You've got people coming into this country who are trying to better their lives. And instead of embracing people who have come to this country, instead of embracing them, to spit on them. That process of spitting is such a negative thing. It's such a destructive thing that as a country, we are becoming we fear, we despise, we loathe. And once again, just bringing this back, it's not the country my parents came to. There's fear and hate. And I'm not, don't get me wrong, people. I'm not saying that the country was so much better in the 60s, 70s, 80s. That's not my point. But there was a thought of, you're coming here to have things get better. Certainly better than where they came from. Speaking specifically of my parents, but also the immigrant experience. People coming from other lands in order to be educated here. And to have that taken away, to have that just disappeared because of some absolute vengeful thought. That this is nothing to do with doing right by our country. It is doing right by one person and by one small group, by that one person being the revenge tour that our president is on. And anything that self-ingratiates, anything that brings him capital, and whether that capital is power or finances, the then you have that small group being that power mongering group, that Project 2025 group that couldn't give a shit about our country as long as they can bend the Constitution to what their will is. And that's all that matters. And it's got nothing to do with right and just. It's about power. And, you know, it sickens me. It sickens me. And frankly, I think it should sicken everybody. It sickens me. And frankly, I think it should sicken everybody. This is, you know, I think we continue to couch this conversation and this language in a left versus right, conservative versus liberal, progressive versus regressive. And I know I've used that language. We continue to couch it in that language. And it has nothing to do with that. And in fact, I'm gonna put it in two ways. I think it has to do, at least from a constitutional perspective, are you pro-democracy or are you not? And it doesn't matter which political side of the spectrum you're in, but either you're for the democratic good of this country or you're not. And I also think, and I this is a tough one. I think it's a battle of good versus evil, because I am when I see hatred for the other to that extreme, I can't help but think that it's evil. Now, if somebody wants to sit here and argue with me and say, no, George, you're full of shit, I would like somebody to just explain to me how it is that the place that we are currently in, how that hatred, you know, that regression is not detrimental. You know, I heard a report earlier this week about Vermont farmers that is having to basically do a lot of the farm work themselves, where before they had migrant workers. Pro-Trump guy, but he's not able to hire people because they're not able to get these people into the country, or there's such fear that they're not coming to work. He's frustrated by that, but at the same time, he wants to kick the illegals out. But that illegals has become anybody who doesn't have citizenship, and even those who do. But let's just start with those who don't have citizenship. It's interesting to see the self-interest is starting to, I'm sure it's starting to create problems for people. It's like, whoa, I didn't expect that was going to happen in my neighborhood. I didn't expect that was going to happen to my business. I didn't expect that was going to happen to my friend. I wasn't expecting this to happen to my sister. But now that we're seeing it happen, there are two things that come from it. First of all, I'm hoping it's an awakening, that people are starting to say, this is not what we bargained for. And they start to open their eyes a little bit more and start looking at, this is really problematic. Who has been thrown out with proper documentation? Who has been thrown out? Okay, so Nick, I will toss this out. When ICE agents are waiting at the courts where people are coming just to go through the process to get to scoop them up, there you go. So why not just wait to see what happens through the process rather than if people are coming to court to kind of get their case heard and whatever, don't fuck with them before. You know? And yeah, Nick, there have been people who have been deported who shouldn't have been deported. You can argue it as much as you want. There's too much out there about that. People who've been told, do not deport this person. We're getting rid of them anyway. But to come for that process, they should already file paperwork. And what's to say they haven't? What's to say they haven't, Nick? So once again, this is the due process point. Nick, where is your proof that they didn't have paperwork? Where is your proof of where they were in the process? And until they go through that process, you can't do anything. So people have been scooped up and shipped out. But let's also, no one with a proper green card or visa has been deported. Nick, and I'm just going to put it this way, and you can delude yourself any way you want with that. And the answer is that's not true. That is not true, my friend. Okay. So, in addition, why are we sitting here and wanting to just throw people out? By the way, there's been this whole call out of, our population is starting to shrink. So instead, why not embrace the immigrant? Bring them into the country. They're older. They're immediately able to work. They're able to start putting money into the economy. And you're growing your population. You have already a workforce that is ready to work here at farms. I got your back, Nick. I know you do. People are going to disagree, and we're okay with that. But I think time will tell. And I've said this multiple times. Time will tell. Do you need a media publicized proof of due process? Do I need media publicized? No, I don't need media but I need everybody to go through that process. And I need that process to happen. And I don't think that process is happening. It can't be. It can't be given how things are happening. It can't be when you have people who are literally just, they're here with green cards and being pulled off the street. Yes, students with visas, as an example. But my point of all of this is, where is our humanity if we're allowing this to happen? Where's our humanity? And that's where I guess I have a hard time. It's when we can't even sit there and just say, let's at least treat people with a level of humanity. We don't want to do that anymore. We don't want to do that. Fuck them. They don't belong here. Get them the fuck out of here. That's our attitude. That's what we want to do. And I have a hard time with that. Partly because, again, I'm going to assume for a second. I don't know what everybody's experiences are, but my family is one. And I've spoken about my family. My family, I'm first generation. My wife is in that same position. Her father was a Texas Bubba, and her mother was a Mexican. Well, then how do you know it hasn't been done? Your visa can be revoked or any reason, like in the protesting in the libraries of colleges. For that, I'm sorry, for free. I just want to make sure I understand. For First Amendment, you've got your opportunity to speak your mind. And for that, you can have your visa revoked. Nick, at what point can we have our citizenship revoked? And if you think that that's not going to be possible, right. I'm a born American, but I identify as an undocumented immigrant. Should I be concerned? P.S. Yo, what's up, Ken? Should you be concerned? I don't know, Ken. I think we're all going to have to be concerned. But I also think that people who sit there, if we want to talk about First Amendment, freedom of speech, all of this stuff, and we're going to start tossing people out because they say some shit, okay, say some shit. You have a right to say it. Pushing down a library of a school a library in one school. And that's the justification. A library at one school. Where was this school? Just some levity. Always good to have a little bit of levity. But my point of all of this is, once again, I cannot, from a place of faith, look at anybody who comes here and look upon them as an enemy. I cannot look upon them as anything more than they're trying to do right by themselves. Student comes here, they want to study, they want to say some shit, say some shit. Don't act on that shit. You can say the shit. And if somebody crosses over here and they want to work here and they're going to find their way of making their way through, great. But that's fine. What do you say, Nick, to all the Venezuelans who are about to get their asses kicked out? Those that came over with, with under, was it TPO? TPS? Okay. Now suddenly it's like, oh, you voted for me. Thank you very much. Now get the fuck out. You're too brown. So anyway, the point of all of this is, where did our humanity go? Are we so frightened of the other that we cannot see that by doing this kind of destruction of tossing out students, attacking universities because of they're anti-Semitic, where the fuck did that come from? Where was the humanity when people were being murdered? I don't know, Mike. Where was that humanity? Where was that humanity at all these school shootings and everything like that? Well, hey, we don't want to go down that route, do we now? There have been more murders by citizens in this country than there have been by those coming into this country, Mike. You can sit there and disagree with that thought as much as you want. That's just fact. Okay? You don't have to believe it. One guy comes in from look, don't get me wrong. You do bad shit, get out. No one is contesting that. But my humanity is still, the majority of the people who are coming here are not coming here to be violent. In the same way, little historical shit, right? When Italians were coming over here, look at all the back in the early part of the 20th century. Look at all these diseases and bad shit that they're bringing over. How's the case, dude? I don't know if any of you motherfuckers out there have ever experienced racism. I have. My first language was Greek. And I know that, I'm a white guy. It's like, well, what can that do? It's like, you want to know how I was treated when I was in kindergarten and first grade? Like shit. Because my first language was what my first language was. My parents were immigrants. So I will always start with, let's at least show some humanity. Go through the process. Anyone who shouldn't be here, there's the door. Let me show you the way out. But I will always start from the perspective of humanity. That's my belief in how this country, I think, was created, in the processes that we've had, and my faith. So I'm just as a quick aside, I'm going to try to work on this P-band die. By the way, I don't know if anybody's noticed, but I actually am on a laptop, and everything is actually facing the right way. So anyway, I also think that, sorry, I'm just trying to get some stuff organized here. I didn't notice you were bigger. I'm not bigger. I'm better. That's not a dendrobium. It is not. Dendrobium's taking a little break. Dendrobium is taking a little break. Hey, Ray, what's going on, brother? So anyway, I think what ends up happening as humans, and this has always been the case as humans, that about damn time. Right, that's only on Sunday. And maybe not even Sunday. It might take a little bit of a break. I've been enjoying the old Zaku much more than working on this. So, what day is it? I don't know, Thursday. By the way, just as a quick aside, for anybody who wanted to tune in this morning and couldn't catch me, it's because I still cannot get my phone to do anything with YouTube. It's just like, as soon as I start up, it locks up my phone. It was the craziest thing. I was 90% sure it was Sunday morning. Kind of feels like it. Who knows? Maybe I'll move here. It's a comfortable room. I like this room. So anyway, so my friends, I know we're not going to agree. And this isn't about trying to, like I said, I'm not gonna twist arms. I'm not gonna, turn to everybody here and just say, you got to believe what I believe. Time is going to tell whether what I believe is right or what I believe is wrong. Time will tell. I think there's too much historical precedent that will indicate, unfortunately, right now, that I'm right. And I don't say that with glee. In fact, I wish I were wrong. I wish I were wrong about the destruction that's being laid upon our country right now. I wish I were wrong about, the an immigrant crisis. I wish I were wrong about all that. I'm not. And I will say it once again. My faith kind of tells me I'm not. What my parents went through, what they went through, what they experienced. Sorry, I'm trying to find a part. 15, 17, 18, and 19. Nice. Where's 16? I hate when they do that. So there it is. It's A216. So I hope I'm wrong, but I don't foresee that I am. I hope that we can find a place where we can all come together at some point. Mike last week was saying that, he's lost friends over this. And I hope I don't lose friends over this. I've lost friends over this stuff, and I hope I don't. I hope we can get to a point where we can, our hearts, not our fear, but our hearts start calling out where things need to be. That we start looking at what's right again. Where we start looking at, our Constitution. And I've been listening to a lot of lawyers recently, which is pretty odd. And when the amount that I'm actually learning about our Constitution, about our laws in this country, is fascinating. And as much as our history is so imperfect, it is fascinating how our founding fathers got so much right. Now, they also had some, they got it right because they also had some historical precedent. If you go back to, the Magna Carta and a bunch of other events in history. But to think that we've come to a point where we've actually created a document that allows all of us to live in a very good place. And we're not going to agree all the time, but we can at least have the ability to disagree. And still be able to break bread. I got to tell you, when Mike said that last week that he's lost friends, it hurt to hear that, because I think it's when we can't talk. What's going on, Handren? Good evening. When we can't talk, with the other that are George, man, what's going on, Handren? When we're literally brick walling ourselves from each other, and we cannot get through and kind of like have our thoughts come together and be able to dialogue. How are we going to get through this? How are we going to ever be able to? How are we ever going to be able to talk, to come together, to be able to move forward? Update, one of them came back. Glad to hear it. We started bitch slapping each other. Yeah, maybe that's what it's going to take, Andrew. That's what it's going to take. Unfortunately, I think there's been too much of that. Just too bad. I think sometimes you do have to slap some sense into people. Yes, I get that. But I do think that we have to find ways, because at some point, there's going to have to be some kind of reconciliation. There's going to have to be you can't have the Dems hating the Republicans hating the Democrats, Christians hating gays hating Christians. You can't have any of this. The hate has to go away. Because all it's going to do is it's going to continue to feed. The hate's going to continue to feed a lack of thought and a lack of trying to move forward. When we fear, when we hate, when our anger is so there. And that's, I think, what I think it might have been Ken was saying earlier, or somebody was saying earlier, that sort of in your faceness. It was Peter. Peter was saying it's like there's just so much of this coming at us, like at machine gun rate. The disgust from this and the anger from that and the I can't believe this. At some point, that has to get behind us. Because what's the alternative? I mean, honestly, what's the alternative? Trying to fix something that is human being DNA. Hatred is something that will always be with human beings as long as the room. Without guidance, there will be more. Absolutely, Handren, I agree with you. I look at it from this is an interesting perspective. I look at it from we're coded in certain ways to behave. We're coded to fear is a very important part of how we survive. I get that. Anger is part of it. Yeah, there are things that we're coded, but what makes us human to rise above what I consider to be the base animal instincts is our ability to rationalize that I shouldn't be afraid of this. Okay, here's an example. Okay, simple example. Has anybody been up like a 10-meter diving platform? I've been up one. Feared the fuck out of it. We are coded to have a certain fear of heights. Not everyone. Okay? My nuts just crawled right back into my body. Like, you're not even coming close to that edge. No fucking way. Okay? Some people have less of that, but we are coded to have certain fears. We are coded to, when we hear noises and there's no light, to be scared of shit. We're coded to have a distrust of the unknown. But as I said, what makes us human is when we go beyond that. Understand that once wrong is normalized and everything else goes out the window. If there's nothing wrong, point out, then how are we going to complain about anything else? We'll find something to complain about because we're humans, once again. But I think if nothing else, We need to find ways of moving away from the anger and the hatred. And whether that hatred is for that group of people we don't know, whether that fear is of, I don't know, economic ruin, take your pick. Whatever it is, we have to find a way of moving beyond it. If we don't, there's a difference between fear of the unknown and willful ignorance that promotes and reinforces the fear. First of all, Catherine, welcome. How are you? I'm not disagreeing with you. I think there is, but I think that willful ignorance was created out of an innate fear that has been stoked by others. And I think in this case, I mean, let's put it this way. Our president has, one of the things I've said to my family, he's like, he's such a dummy. He's not a dummy. He is the world's greatest snake oil salesman. He could sell, what's the proverbial term? He could sell ice to an Eskimo. Because he knows how to use fear and weaponize it. And I think people have innate fears or are stoked into those fears. And it's brought forward. Now, this is where, and to Handren's point, I think that, oh, hey, Katie. Catherine, which is so weird. I guess that would make sense. What's going on, Katie? Good to see you. Thank you for popping in. I think that it is important for us to know when we then have to just say enough. And you're right. And this is where we're coded to some degree, and we're letting our code just run rampant. But we have to own it. At some point, we have to own. The Dems love to fearmonger. Mike, stop with the Dems thing. You mean to tell me that the Repubs, the MAGAites don't? Everybody does, Mike. This is what I'm getting at. Mike, what you're doing is you're going after a group. And what I'm saying is, it's not about going after the group. We're all in this. When you say the Dems, or when the Dems say the Republicans, you're feeding into that mistake, that interior fear. It's like, stop. Sorry, let me see what Handren says here, and I'll catch up. Mike, and please, Mike, understand, this isn't an attack on you, but this is the mistake I think that we all make. And in fact, I've gone out on a number of left-wing sites, and I said, we can't vilify those that have made mistakes. Fuck them. They're the ones who voted for this. They're suffering because of it. What the fuck is that? All you're doing is feeding into the same problem. Well, the next generation is being indoctrinated through media. Things that used to be wrong. People are afraid of that. We're willing to take the snake salesman. He offers them an alternative. Yes, you're right. But that's historically how it's always been. In many ways, religions were created that way, right? How do we wrap our brains around what happened to us? Ow, I hurt myself. Ow, my child just died. Ow, I'm going to die in another month. I'm old. I'm going to die, right? How do we move beyond? Sorry, I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing here. This is always interesting, isn't it? So, but I think people have to start owning, and I've been saying this for the longest time. People have to start owning what they do. George, me and you are growing up in a different era and different customs. So now this era those values are abolished for the sake of things we actually don't agree on. I'd like to think, Handren, I got to tell you, I actually have a lot more hope for the young generation than I do for ours. Richie, what's going on, brother? I have a lot more hope. In fact, I believe that my generation, which is the older Gen X, young boomer, we're the ones who created this problem. And what's going to save it is going to be those that are much younger than us. I firmly believe that. I look at some of these young kid politicians that are coming out. I'm so excited. I'm so excited because I think they're actually seeing the world like, what have you done to us? I'm an 85 baby, the last of a dying breed. Richard, were you born in 85? Fuck. God damn. I was halfway through college. Jesus, man. Yeah, that's 40 years ago. Fuck me. So, yeah, Hendron, I've got a lot more hope that a younger generation will come through and do better. In my opinion, there wasn't a problem. The problem created by the bigger powers who are rich enough to sway the mindset of the masses still makes me the baby. Nick, you will always be our baby. Just a wee pup. But I'm optimistic that the young generation is going to be the one that's going to look at it. So, Hendron, yes, you're 100% right. Don't forget the universal truths that unite us all, like Love Electric Avenue by Eddie Grant. Exactly. We should listen to more music. Ken's 100% right. We should listen to more music and just, I don't care. Go smoke more weed. I don't give a shit. But whatever it takes to ramp this all down. We fucked up this world. I truly believe that hippie culture that we had that then discovered, yeah, hippie isn't doing it for me. But boy, I like the money that can be made. And now suddenly, what was it? The sex, drugs, and rock and roll generation became the Fox TV generation. I heard that, I think, from Tom Nichols. And I was like, that's exactly what it became. Because they became complacent and comfortable with how things were and the comfort that was built around. And that's what allowed the destruction to come through, the rampant greed to come through, and the destruction of our society. There's a whole lot of things. I'm oversimplifying it. Don't get me wrong. I'm oversimplifying it. Listen to music, smoke weed, and build Gumpla. Exactly, Richie. I don't smoke weed, but I don't give a shit. I'd rather people smoke weed if it's going to cause them to just fucking chill. Everything boils down to money for the people that actually makes the rules, set the rules, hold power. Exactly. Sex, weed, and gunpla. Yeah, Richie, now we're talking. Missed that. I think the youngins will be the spark, but without the other generations helping, they'll burn out, and we're then all fucked. I think we have guidance by, yes, I agree. You can't just have like turn it completely over to them. But I do think that we need more young people's involvement. To me, it's you need to get a group of people who are becoming so disenfranchised. Like Hendron was saying, they're so disenfranchised from the world because it's like, what the fuck am I doing this for? I know young people right now, it's like, I don't bother fucking voting. What's it going to do? They don't understand this, the importance of the civic duty that they have. Because, and it's not like their parents, because I know a couple people, their parents are like, why aren't you voting? It's not important. What do you mean it's not important? It's not like they weren't brought up right? It's just that they don't see the value. I beg to differ. I think the next generation, we are completely fucked if we depend on them. Just look around and see what this generation is doing. Oh, I'm way more optimistic than you are, Hendron. Oh, that's completely entitled. Oh, I think that they do. I think that there's a group of them that feel entitled. But Hendron, honestly, I just want to make sure I'm on the same page here. Our president, who's substantially older than I am, okay, is the most entitled bitch out there. He thinks he's owed. Again, kind of full circle conversation. He's owed, and he's on his revenge tour. He's owed that $400 million plane. He's owed this, that, and the other. Where do you think they might have picked up some of this stuff? So I don't think this is a generational thing. I think that the young generation has become disenfranchised because they're just looking at it and just saying, what the fuck? Why am I bothering? And to those who actually start stepping in and start saying, you know what, I need to get involved. Good. And I'm hoping there'll be more of that. We kind of need that same kind of lack of complacency that happened in the 60s without the great. Now we've kind of gotten up there. It's like, yeah, now I need to make money. I hope we don't have a return to that. He is a spoiled kid. He is. And that's what I'm saying. It's like this isn't a generational thing. We tend to look at anybody who's of an older generation always looks at the younger people and says, you're a fucking slacker. Always. It's always been that way. You don't know better. We know better because we're more mature. You just sit there and listen. And that's always been the case. It's just that we're in an era right now where it has gotten to the point of being destructive because there's just so much of it and it's so in our face and we've created so many distractions. When you spoil a human being, yep, but George is a minority of the last generation. This generation, the majority are spoiled. That's the difference. I don't think that they're spoiled. I think that's an overgeneralization of a lot of people in this country, of a lot of young people. I think, Cameron, I'm gonna suggest something. Suggest. In the same way that I was saying to Mike about don't focus on the Dems and the problems that they're creating. In the same way, I'm not trying to focus on the negativity that's coming from the right, the people that I know, people who are on here who I differ with. I'm looking for ways of coming together. And I'm looking for ways of trying to bring us together. We're not, if we look at it, we've created such a power play that I have to be right. I'm taking this away from the kids right now. I have to be right. And if I show any weakness and I'm viewed as wrong, fuck you. That's a problem. And that's what we created, these power plays amongst all these different groups, all these little tribes. And these tribes aren't, like I said, it's not the Democrats, Republicans. There's multiple tribes out there. And we've created all these tribes. Or all these, I shouldn't say we created them. All these tribes have been created. And at some point, you have to start looking. There is no tribe. Back in our day, we were respect people that are older than ourselves. The smallest things hold the door for an elderly person. Oh, yeah. I'm not just, hey, Handren, 100%. But I think we want to distinguish between those two things. I agree with you. We need to teach a certain level of respect. I'm just holding the door open for anybody. But I'm also going to suggest the reason why kids are where they are is because they've seen the older generation, how they fucked them. And they've said, I don't want that. By the way, Hannah, just as an FYI, I've been very vocal to my kids about that. Don't show any respect to anybody. Like if you're like at work, if they're not respecting you, you have every right to just say, fuck this, I'm out of here. That loyalty that we had to our employers, that loyalty we had to those groups, when those groups want to sit there and punish us, when those groups are sitting there and just treating us like shit, you know what? No. I saw my dad. I'm going to use myself as another example. Okay. I saw my dad, how he was treated by a corporation. And I remember him. I've mentioned this before. When he was about either he lost a bonus, which he was counting on, and he was taking a financial hit, and it looked like the business was going under. I'm like that 24/7, 365, George. I love it. Okay. He was going to lose his job, and my dad was crying. And I remember that moment. I was 13 at the time. And remember, I'm almost 60 now. I remember that moment. And I remember thinking, that's how somebody who was loyal to that organization got treated. This is in the late 70s. Late 70s? 1980. Okay? Somebody was loyal to his company who went out of the way to do right, putting extra time, uncompensated, all that stuff. Basically, to be told by his company, go fuck yourself. So how do you think I would feel about that? If I see that, what am I being told? If you're the parent, excuse me, if you're the child of somebody who works in a factory at some point, like you're an auto worker, your dad was an auto worker, your mom was an auto worker, and you saw what was happening with all of these layoffs and everything like that years ago. What do you think it's going to, what kind of message does that send? When your kid's looking at it saying, what's going on? And the parent's like, I lost my job. You know, that sort of old school mentality of a company had loyalty to its people is gone. That to me was, I kind of look at that's the sort of the foundation of where things started to change in our country when our companies and our employees, and I know there's always been tension between the two. Don't get me wrong. I've studied labor history. Hold on a second here. High power treating lower class like shit has always been the bane of society. Yep. We'll always be going to have the problem. Yep. Loyalty gets you somewhere with the right people. But for example, my job, the inmates run the asylum, management ain't shit. Yes. And that's another conversation for another day. But yes, I live that too. I know most people I know live that. Human beings has a tendency to let power, money go to their mind. Serve. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But more importantly, and I want to bring this kind of back to where we're talking about, Andrew. So if you're a child looking at your parent getting laid off, looking at or listening to the conversations that your parents are happening about this fucked up company that my parents are working at, what message do you think that sends to these kids? They pick this shit up. And then suddenly it's like, fuck this. Loyalty gets you nowhere in a job. Nick, loyalty gets you nowhere in many places, unfortunately, today. But yes, certainly in a job. Give the most pure human being with the highest standards. Give them a lot of money and position and power, and they will be more evil than the people. I would like to think you were wrong, Pandren, and I'd like to say you're so fucking wrong. I can't. I can't. So anyway, oh, by the way, Nick, and not to bring this kind of back to our earlier conversation, all of these high-paying jobs that our president is telling us are going to come back here, all these factory jobs are going to come back here. Anybody who believes that is out of their fucking tree. When has a Republican ever said, let's pay people a high wage? When has a Republican ever said that? When's the last time we had a raise in the minimum wage? In the national wage. Why is it all of these companies are opening up their businesses in the South where there are fewer their right to work states, not union states? But these jobs are coming back and they're going to be high paid jobs? Really? So, and that's again, if they actually bring them back with human labor. Now, again, it's a bit of an oversimplification. I do know that a lot of these jobs also will require people to up their skills. But then when you have a president who's basically saying, but we like our mine workers, we need our mine workers in the ground, you're basically saying that's what you're good for. That's all that you're good for. And you get what you get out of your life that way. So. Anyway, so let's see if I can get another part on here. Let's see if I can get the head done before I leave today. I might just stay on long enough to get the head done. How's that? Anyway, as you know, every week I come here and I'm thinking, oh, I know what I'm going to talk about next week. I know what I'm going to talk about next week. And it's like, and I'm kind of finding right now, my voice is heading much more towards, you know, I guess what I'm starting to do is like, look, I'm not looking to become some pundit in this. I guess I'm just trying to voice my in many ways it's my confusion towards such hatred, my confusion towards such venom, fear, my confusion towards hatred, because all of this flies in the face, and again, and I want you guys to think about this for a second. Everybody carries baggage. You've got your history, your personal history, and maybe your personal history is the opposite of what I grew up in. Great, but I can't fight my history. And I'm not saying I can't recode some parts of it, but I can't fight my experiences if my experiences have led me to see, as an example, how I came here, how I was fortunate to be in the country, how I was fortunate to have the things that I've had. When I or see the things that I've seen that are just like, this doesn't make sense, or the experiences that, like I said, I've lived. Our each of us roads have kind of brought us to where we are. And my road has certainly been one of, maybe, just to oversimplify it. And I'm saying it to oversimplify it. My road has been one of faith. And by faith, just so we're on the same page, guys. I don't mean by faith like I'm not I don't know what's happened after the veil. After I die, I don't know what's going to happen. I just know what I've been taught about how to be a good person based on the religion that I've been brought up by, the religions I've been brought up in. Pratt & was on strike in CT partially because they wanted to move to Florida where it's cheap labor. Exactly. How about when Tesla, when Musk got all freaked out about, what do you mean I'm not going to get my bonus? Fuck you, I'm moving down to Texas. Most of the car companies that are opening up, factories in this country are not opening them up in Michigan. We're getting all pissed off about the Canadians, and it's like, but we'll open it down in South Carolina, in Georgia. Trump gets all wigged out about what's going on in Hollywood. Just so you know, a lot of those jobs not only went up to Canada, they went to Georgia because the tax breaks. It's cheaper labor. George, I believe you know or have an idea about your origins country, Greece, in that area. To be exact, the rest of the world, when you compared their income with the labor they do to us, you'd be like, we are kings compared. And I think it was, just by the way, Handren, my parents, my father, my father escaped in a country of abject poverty. My father actually didn't come, believe it or not, neither of my parents came from Greece. So this is again, I'm sure I've mentioned this many times before, but my father came from Albania, an area contested by both Greeks and Albanians, but he came from Albania. In the places and I've seen photos of where he grew up. I mean, it was literally, and remember, he came over in the 20s. Same area, yeah. He came over in the late 20s, early 30s. It was like something from the 1700s is what they grew up in. And they came here, and suddenly they have all the riches in the world. Funny part, my father's father had two brothers. My father's father passed away, and the brothers fucked my grandmother. And then the two brothers that were still around, one of them fucked the other one and had him deported. The other one did very well for himself. So there's a number of L.I. Liliuses out there. Not all of them are bad. Some of them, I don't think I can have a conversation with them. No. But again, to your point earlier, agreed. But my parents came here to this country. My father came here to this country. His father came to this country because of the abject poverty of what they were living in. And they kept their morals. That's the other thing that's important. Just because you give people money doesn't necessarily mean they're all going to do bad. The temptation is there, but it's like the temptation of Christ. Here's all the stuff that you can do. Anybody ever see the movie The Last Temptation of Christ? Great film. These are the temptations. I can give you all of this. I can give you all of that. Why? What's that going to do? Wife was the Middle East. She used to work 9 hours a day, 7 days a week, and only make $400 a month. That's even better than other countries when you think about it. The problem is global. Oh, absolutely. Handren, absolutely. By the way, I don't know, we're going to start seeing a shift towards, and we're seeing a shift towards, you know what? Why don't we do business in Africa? Because Asia is now getting too expensive. Anyway. So I've kind of gone over my time. I'd like to think that this was not as fiery as some of my previous sessions. And who knows? I'm still trying to find my voice in this. But my voice in this is going to be for a couple things. I calmed you down. You probably did. Handren, you're a great guy. I look forward to the day that we get a chance to meet. But I will say this. I am angry. This is why it's so unleashed. I've got so much pent-up anger over what's going on. Thank you, brother. Yeah, same. Yeah. I just hope that my anger gets channeled in such a way that we start finding ways of, I want to put that energy into something positive. And this is one of those things that I'm doing. Take that energy, talk about the BS that's going on, try to make this a better world. It'd be an honor, no doubt. Oh, absolutely. Mutual honor. So we have to find ways of putting the hate and the fear behind us. And once you start putting the hate and the fear behind you, reasoning comes back, and then you can start looking at the world in a more wide-eyed, open-minded way. That's all I'm going to ask. And that goes for whatever tribe you're in. Okay? So I think with that, I think I said my piece for this week. I love you all. And I mean that. I don't always agree with you. I don't agree with my kids all the time. God knows, and I love them to death. And they drive me batshit crazy. But I love my kids. I love everybody out there. And I'm trying to be a person who has less hate in their heart and a lot more goodness in their heart. Thank you, Handren. I appreciate that. And I want us to go out there and start thinking from a point of love and respect, understanding, and try to look at the venom that's out there and just say, that's not who I am. That's not what I want. And reason your way through. So with that, thank you, everybody. Appreciate the ability to talk with people tonight. This is a totally different thing from what I normally do. Well, when you start working on that one, Handren, peace, people. Exactly, Ken. 100% Handren. So anyway, guys, go out there, do good, brighten the world as much as you possibly can. Make it a better planet, not a worse planet. And by better, that means treat people with kindness and with love and with respect. Do good. Nick, brother, have a good night too. I'll see you in the morning. All right, my friend? But go out there and just treat people with respect and show them love. Show them the better way that we can do things, not a nasty way. So with that, I'll be back on tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. I'm not sure on what device, but I'm going to be back on tomorrow morning. And I'll be doing this again next Thursday night. So guys, go do good. Enjoy. Love you all. And I'll catch you on the flip. Peace.